folks, welcome to the channel Trickle Down Philosophy, where I look at all kinds of ideas, different fields of study, cosmology, theology, anything. And I'm not here to promote it. I'm agnostic, and there might be a God. I think on logical grounds you could make a point, absolutely, that the matter in the universe came from somewhere, and that may have been an independent agent that we would call God. But then an equally valid position is, well, where did God come from? If you say God always was, well, why couldn't the matter in the universe just always be? So in any case, but I don't base it on the text. But what I'm doing today is, this is a science problem or a scientific problem for the theory of the immaculate conception, as it is posited in the New Testament that a virgin, Mary, got impregnated supernaturally by God and brought about the sinless Messiah. And the idea is that back in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve sinned. The sin is in the blood. Like, these are loosely connected verses throughout the Bible. Sin is in the blood because they screwed it up, and therefore everybody was born basically with a death sentence after that, or a proclivity to sin, however you want to word it, but that would ultimately lead to our death. The New Testament solution to that is Jesus was perfect. He was the Lamb of God, was crucified, sinless blood. Now anybody in the world has to do is receive that atoning sacrifice that God so generously provided for us by impregnating Mary. And though there are other problems with that theory, because the doctrine of the Trinity says that Jesus always was. He was the third person in the Godhead. So he had to disrobe himself of his glory and come down and somehow get into Mary's womb. But without going into all the other contradictory or problematic ideas resident within that body theology, we're just going to look at a simpler one that involves the egg itself. So, God, in theory, impregnated Mary. She was a willing participant in this. She said, "Be it unto me, Lord, according to thy word." So, God supernaturally, this is the idea, created the seed in Mary. Now, Mary needed an egg. Mary had an egg. She was of delivering age. And at that time, it probably would have been about, 13 years old when she gave birth, 12 when she conceived. And that sounds appalling to Western ears nowadays, because we don't get married or have babies until we're in our 30s. But that's because, one, we live a lot longer than we used to. And two, we might be a little bit more materialistic, going after better careers so that we can buy bigger homes and nicer cars and other luxuries. Back then, not so much so. So if God put the seed into the egg of Mary, and the theory is the seed had to be perfect, then what about the DNA in Mary's egg? Did that not contribute anything to the development of the zygote, the embryo, and eventually the birth of Jesus? Or was it just a pretense? Did God just create the whole thing, a perfect egg and perfect seed, and just speak that into her womb so that she was just a host of the baby that would eventually, the fetus that would eventually become Jesus? So in that case, Mary wouldn't have really been the mother. There would have been mitochondrial DNA, and, she would have breastfed the infant, and that would have affected his immune system generally favorably. But when it comes down to it, what is your idea about the idea of God creating seed, but Mary's DNA having nothing to do with the development of Jesus? Because Mary was not sinless. Now, she may have been a very good young lady, but the only person, the theory that we're all born in sin after Adam and Eve did whatever they did in the garden, Mary among them, then her blood was corrupt. So did the seed from God interact with the DNA at all in Mary's egg? And this is something that I guess when it was first posited about the Immaculate Conception, that it would have been more believable. But, millennia later, where we've understood a bit more, at least think we understand a bit more about double helixes and the other aspects of DNA and RNA and all this, how the process actually works, where the seed from the man goes into the egg of the woman, and there's recessive genes, dominant genes, and both play a part in the actual human being that would come forth. So just pointing that out, that is actually problematic for the idea of the Immaculate Conception, and certainly women or anybody who's into women's rights. This is just to stir the pot that, maybe this was one of the early ways of sort of dismissing women. Not only couldn't they teach in church or wherever, but the most important person in Christian theology, the very egg, the life-giving part of the woman, has no part in that child. So she was just a host. She really wasn't anything else than just a carrier of an egg. But if her DNA did contribute to the development of Jesus, then his blood wasn't perfect and his atonement wasn't perfect. So these are just some of the things that it's pretty simple, actually. It's not all that complex. So leave your thoughts, guys. I read them. I try to respond. I respond to some of them, and we'll go from there. Have a great day. See you on another video, and keep thinking philosophically.